Hello everyone, it's Becca from Becca Books and Bujo, and today I am here to tell you about all of the books I read in the month of May. I read 10 books in the month of May, all thanks to Becca's Bookoplathon. That helped me get through quite a few books and gave me the drive to keep reading halfway through the month, or toward the end of the month, I should say. But let's just jump right into the first book I read. The first one I read was Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. I picked this one up for Books and Lala's Buzzword-a-thon. The buzzword was directions, and I, for some reason, was convinced that I needed to read like north, south, east, west direction. So I was planning on reading Exit West, but then I saw someone say that they were using the word up, and so I was like, I should look at like up and down on my Goodreads. So I looked it up and I saw Long Way Down on there, and it was at my library. So I quick picked it up one day and I read it that day in one day. It was such an easy read. It's written in verse, and so it's a really quick and easy read, and it was such a surprise. The main character is Will, and he is dealing with the death of his brother. And he had been raised to follow 3 rules: no crying, no snitching, and get revenge. On his way to get revenge for his brother, because his brother was murdered on the streets, he's visited by people in his life who give him some advice on how to continue on. It is so good and very appropriate for everything that is going on right now, especially with gun violence and the Black community. And so this one I gave 5 stars to. Absolutely loved it. You should definitely give it a read if you haven't already. Then I read After the End by Claire McIntosh. This one I saw on Kara's channel of Kara's Bookshelf, and it drew me in because she said it made her bawl, and I love a good cry. And I didn't realize, though, how close to home it would hit. So this one is about a couple, Max and Pip, and they are forced to decide whether or not they should continue medical intervention for their son, who is battling cancer. Their son is 2.5 years old, and I have a 2.5-year-old. So this book hit me really hard. I cried a lot, not as much as I thought I would, but there were some really great life lessons I learned from this one. It made me appreciate the time I have with my son. Also, this book taught me to live into the small moments that you have with your children, because you never know when it'll be the last time that you do something with them. So the last time he might ask you to cuddle with him, or the last time he wants to sit on your lap, the last time he wants you to read a book to him. It will make me remember these little small moments with my little baby boy. There is one, or actually a couple quotes I want to share with you. I wrote them in my, dropped something. I wrote them in my bullet journal, or my reading journal, I should say. The first one is just along the lines of like taking every moment possible with your child or your children. Both dogs are now itching. Okay, this is Pip is asking these questions. Why didn't I take every opportunity I had? Why didn't I realize one day I might not be able to? All those times I wished Dylan was bigger. Dylan is the 2-year-old boy. Imagine taking him fishing, teaching him to drive, wishing away the future when the present was right there. The present was perfect. So you have to live into the now. And then one other one is, when you stand at a crossroads, you cannot see each destination, only the beginnings of the paths that will lead you there. All you can do is choose one and walk and hope that someone will walk with you. So that one's just about having a community and having people that you can live this life with. So again, it really made me appreciate who I have, the people that love me, and just that I am pretty lucky. Although this one gave me all the feels, it was just a little slow. So I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. Definitely worthy of reading and made me feel some real emotions, but just a little slow to the finish. So then, the next one was this chonker. A Breath of Snow and Ashes by Diana Gabaldon. This is the 6th in the Outlander series. I read this one, especially right now, just to watch the new season of the TV show with my husband. We got sucked into watching This Is Us, though, so we need to get back into watching Outlander, especially when we did a 3-month trial on Stars, and that's about to run out. So we got to get back to reading or watching this. But anyway, about this book, if you don't know about the Outlander series, we follow our main character Claire as she travels back in time to the 1700s. So she's originally from the 1940s, post-World War II, and we travel back to the 1700s. It is an epic tale of romance, war, and familial love. I don't want to give too much away about this one in particular because I don't want to give away the entire series, but in this specific book, we follow Claire and her husband Jamie as they are preparing for the Civil War in America. These books are huge. They're long. This one was like almost 1,000 pages. So much happens in it that I feel just was not super important to the plot of the whole story. Not super necessary, all of the little itty bitty stories, which I mean, I guess what makes it Outlander, but because of how long it took me and some of the things that just didn't really feel necessary to me, I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. Then I read All Systems Red by Martha Wells. I'll put a picture right here. This is the first novella in the Murderbots series. I picked it up for one of the 48-hour Becca's Bookathon prompts. I participated in this readathon and vlogged it. It was my first reading vlog ever. I will link it up in the cards if you would like to take a look at that. This one did not work for me. I've mentioned this before and I'll say it again. I need to quit trying to make sci-fi my genre. It is not for me. I don't know. I heard the murder bot, this main character, was witty, so I thought that might help me get through this sci-fi, but I just couldn't get into it at all. And so I will not be continuing with this series, and unfortunately I only gave it 1 star. Then we jump to a 5-star. I read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I picked this book up for my May deck of TBR for number in the title prompt, and I am so glad that I finally read this one. I read Daisy Jones and the Six quite a while ago, like right as I was getting back into reading after college. You know how in college you're forced to read all of these books, and then after college you like find the joy and love of reading again. So I had picked it up right about then, and I don't remember it being my favorite read, but after reading Evelyn Hugo, I want to go back and read Daisy Jones and the Six because I just think I would appreciate it so much more. This book is about a journalist named Monique, and she is chosen by the movie star herself, Evelyn Hugo, to write her autobiography. We follow along as Evelyn tells Monique her story and about the 7 husbands that she had throughout her lifetime. It is revealed who her one true love is and why Evelyn picked Monique specifically to write this story, and it is a shocker. Evelyn says early on in her talks with Monique that she would find out why Evelyn picked her and would hate her for the reason. And yeah, I'm sorry, Evelyn. Love you and hate you all at once, but ultimately, great story. One of my favorite quotes from this, I'm going to read it, is, "Knowing there are all different types of great loves out there is enough for me," which is just truly great. Like, when you think of love, everyone imagines like this great romantic once in a lifetime love, and I feel like there are all different types of love that you can have in your lifetime. One especially right now, just with all of the books I've read recently, is just the love of your life, of your children. And so it's really great to hear that quote and Evelyn talking about the loves of her lifetime. Anyway, this was 5 stars, loved it, and it just makes me want to read more Taylor Jenkins Reid. I've got Malibu Rising on my shelves, and I think she's coming out with a new one very soon. Catherine Soto is back? I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, loved it. Moving on. That also fit a Bookathon prompt. I was listening to it, so I used it as audiobook or ebook prompt. Then I read Neon Gods by Katie Robert, and I think I first heard of this book through Becca's channel, Becca and the Books, but I actually had heard of Katie Robert first with her Wicked Villains series, where she smuttily rewrites Disney princesses. That intrigued me, and then when one of the prompts for Becca's Bookathon came up, that was Gods, I went with Neon Gods. It was on Scribd, so I was able to listen to it, and it made me blush quite a bit. It was very steamy and very outwardly so. Like some of these things happen, usually in the bedroom, but this was public for everyone to see. So that was just like a lot. Anyway, if you don't know about Neon Gods, this is a modern retelling of Persephone and Hades, their love story. So these famous Greek gods live in a modern day city split into two parts by the river Styx. So we have the higher city, Olympus, and the lower city, Hades. Persephone, the daughter of Zeus and Demeter, runs away from all of her problems and winds up in the lower city, in the underworld. And in order to escape an arranged marriage, she strikes up a sexy agreement with Hades so that she can stay there and hide. Because of how smutty it was, I felt embarrassed to be reading it and wasn't sure that I was going to complete it. However, there turns out to be actual feelings between Hades and Persephone later on, developing between these two, and that redeemed their relationship and the book for me. So not sure if I'll continue on with the series. I saw that there's a second one and maybe more coming in the future, but it definitely was entertaining, and so I gave it 3 stars. Then, changing gears completely, I read a contemporary. I read The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. I originally heard about this one from Heather at Bell's Library, and then I had also read an Elizabeth Acevedo before, Clap When You Land, and I really liked that one, so I had high hopes for Poet X. I picked it for the YA prompt for the Bookathon, and this one is a contemporary written in verse from the perspective of an Afro-Latina teenager, a teenage girl, and as she grows into her womanhood, she realizes all the trials that she has to face as a woman in the modern world, and she couldn't quite figure out how to express her frustrations with being a woman in the world today until she joined her school's slam poetry club. Unfortunately, I think I read this one way too quickly to fully appreciate it. I listened to it and was just trying to get it done during that weekend of the readathon. And so I think I likely need to go back and reread it. I would love to read a physical copy of it just to fully get that verse. Although listening to it was really beautiful. So overall, it was beautifully written and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Would love to revisit it someday soon in the future. And that one I gave 4 stars. Next, we have For One More Day by Mitch Albom. This had been on my shelves for a very long time, and I think it was given to me by my dad, or it was on his shelves, and I somehow stole it from him. But I picked this one for a deck of PBR. I wish. A deck of TBR prompt, but it also managed to fit into the short book prompt for Becca's Bookathon, because it's like 195 pages. 192. Anyway, this one, we follow a man named Chick and his near-death experience. He really is not loving his life right now. His marriage is in shambles. His kids don't want to spend time with him, and he is thinking about ending his life himself. Then, during his near-death experience, he spends a lot of time with his late mother and learns about all the sacrifices she had to make for his family. So this one really made me look back at my upbringing and the things my parents had to do for me and my 3 siblings. It also helped me look at how my husband and I are raising our children in hopes of having them live full and respectable lives. There were so many nuggets of wisdom in this one. I tabbed it like crazy. Can you see all of the folded corners? I've yet to put all of these little nuggets in my bullet journal, my reading journal, but I will transfer all of them over just because there were some great lessons. Quick example, I'll just open up to a random one. Yeah, so this one is, here's what you're going to find out about marriage. You have to work at it together, and you have to love 3 things. You have to love 1, each other, 2, your children, when you have some, hint, hint, because this was a letter from his mother to him, and then 3, your marriage. So you have to love those 3 things. It was just, good bits of information in this one. I picked this one for the deck of TBR prompt to make me cry, and it didn't make me cry, but it did make me tear up at times. And so overall, I think this was 4 stars. And if you're looking for like a sentimental reflection on your life, you could give this one a read. The next one we have here is In 5 Years by Rebecca Searle. This one was chosen by someone in my book club that I have with my friends. We call it the Honeybee Book Club. And right before I started reading it, a viewer actually commented on my May deck of TBR that she DNF'd this one. I think it was Book Talks with Mrs. Thomas. And I think she was right. I maybe would have DNF'd it also, but I tried to push through because it's for my book club and I wanted to be able to fully discuss it with them when we talk about it on Monday. So this one is about a woman named Dani, and the night that she gets engaged to her longtime boyfriend, she has a dream that is set in the future, 5 years. In this dream, something really real and vivid happens, and so she thinks she somehow jumped into the future and jumped forward in time. But then she wakes from the dream and continues on in her life, living her normal everyday life, but always has that dream or vision or whatever you want to call it in the back of her mind. And then almost 5 years later, 4.5-ish years later, she's anticipating what happened in that dream to occur. And then the characters from that dream show up in her life, and it happens. It really happens. And while that part of the book was really intriguing to me and made me continue reading to see if it was actually going to occur, I just didn't get the overall point of the book. One important relationship in this book is her best friend, Bella, and something happens with her best friend, but it causes the event in the dream to happen. And I really wasn't cool with that event, and just didn't like how everything played out between that friendship. And I don't know. I'll be interested to see what my book club has to say about it, if there are any redeeming qualities to it, but ultimately I just gave it 2 stars. And then the final and 10th book I read in the month of May was The Guest List by Lucy Foley. This one covered 3 prompts for Becca's Bookoplathon, although I didn't finish it that weekend. I did finish it in the month of May, so I'll take it as a win. It covered Spooky, Water on the Cover, and Feed Scroll. I was lucky enough that Books with Maddie happened to have updated her progress on this book, and so it perfectly fit that prompt for me. This is a classic Lucy Foley. If you've read one Lucy Foley, I feel like you've read them all. My first Lucy Foley was The Hunting Party, and because I didn't love that, I kind of went into this one a little skeptical. Her formula is many perspectives. You never know who the killer is or who was murdered. And then you know something happens, but not exactly what. And so the formula is very predictable, but you just never know who is involved. However, I felt like I had this one figured out. I was like, know who the murderer is, know who's killed. It's obvious. But it wasn't. I was wrong. And so I enjoyed that twist, and it definitely kept me guessing. And so this one I gave 3 stars, maybe leaning toward 3.5, just because I felt like I knew what was going on. My bookmark in this one was a fruit snack wrapper. Thanks to my son, Theo. But yeah, ultimately, this was a good read, and I'm nervous to pick up The Paris Apartment. I got that one as a book of the month a few months ago, and I'm nervous because I feel like it's going to fit into the formula perfectly. But Lucy Foley always manages to write it so that you think you know what's going on, but then you really don't. So I really admire her for that and that way that she's writing. Anyway, those are the books I read in the month of May. Have you read any of these books? Did you like them? Did you not? Let's talk down below. I'd love to have some bookish conversations with you there. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. And I would love it if you would consider subscribing to my channel. I'm trying to make my channel grow, and it'd be fun to have you along to watch my bookish and bullet journaling content in the future. Thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.